All right. Are we ready to go?
We are.
Okay. Sorry, was on the phone with Ed and trying to work through some technical difficulties, I understand. All right. So if we are ready to go, then good evening. It is Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021, and this is a special board meeting of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. The board is convened this evening to conduct its fourth redistricting hearing, which will begin promptly at 6:30. Due to issues arising from COVID-19, the board is using a WebEx teleconferencing format for today's meeting and may be participating via the World Wide Web. If you would like to make a public comment through the teleconferencing format today or this evening, please make sure that you are identified by name in the WebEx system. The board will allow unscheduled appearances between 6:15 and 6:30 p.m. For those wishing to comment during this time on general matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, please use the raise your hand feature and wait to be recognized. You will be allowed up to 5 minutes for public comment. Any member of the audience, either in person or online, who wishes to comment on matters related to redistricting, we'll ask you to please wait until we open the public hearing. Members in the audience who have filled out speaker cards will be taken in the order they were received by the clerk and online speakers, and will be taken also in the order they appear in the WebEx program, showing that their hand is raised. Please wait to be recognized. Your name will be announced. Then it will return. Then it will be your turn to speak. If you wish to speak today and are having issues with the raise your hand feature in WebEx, please physically raise your hand so that we may see you, and then please wait to be recognized. So with that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Joe Neves.
Here.
Richard Valley.
Here.
Doug Verboon.
Here.
Craig Peterson.
Here.
Richard Fagundes.
Okay, we have 5 members present. Supervisor Valley, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ready, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America
and to the republic which stands one nation
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and
liberty
justice.
and justice. All right, thank you for that. Sorry, I have a little issue with my iPad here. Hold on one sec.
Hey, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, while you do that, would you permit me to, I just want to let you know as well and introduce in the audience here today, we have the chairman and the vice chairman of the Tachiyoka tribe. We have the Honorable Leo Cisco and the Honorable Robert Jeff in the chambers as well, Mr. Chair, and we welcome them. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for being here this evening. So with that, we'll move to item 2, which is unscheduled appearances. And again, this is not to provide comment on the redistricting segment. That will be taken, your comments will be taken during the public hearing once it's opened and the presentation has been completed. So at this time, any person may directly address the board on any item on the agenda or other items of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. 5 minutes are allowed for each item. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chair, I do not have anyone who wants to speak under unscheduled. They're all here for the redistricting public hearing.
Okay, very good. So at this time, we'll take a short recess till 6:30. And I just, to make folks aware, we are informed that one of our interpreters is running behind, and so we may have to wait a few moments to get them here, but we're doing our best to backfill that. So with that, we'll come back at 6:30. Thank you. All righty. It is 6:30 and this is the scheduled time for a public hearing with respect to the redistricting of Kings County. And with that, before I go and start the program, Madam Clerk, could you poll the audience and see if there's anyone that needs an interpreter in the audience?
We did have a member of the audience do that for us, and I did not see anyone who raised their hand.
Okay. All right. Well, then with that, we do have an interpreter on our channel that's being broadcasted live. And so with that, I'll turn it over to administration to lead us in the public hearing. So please go ahead.
This is Diane Freeman, Interim County Counsel, and I will take the lead on introducing the public hearing today. Good evening, members of the public, Board of Supervisors, and CAO. This public hearing is being held this is the fourth public hearing. It's being held in person and also being broadcast via WebEx and YouTube teleconferencing formats. If you're joining us in person due to COVID-19, in-person attendance is limited in the chambers itself. It's limited to 20 people at a time. Should the board chamber reach capacity, which it appears it has, there is an overflow area in the nearby multipurpose room where a live stream of the hearing will be available. Those who are in the overflow room and wish to make a public comment in person at the hearing will be allowed into the board chambers one at a time during the hearing to make their comment. If the board chamber is still at capacity after their comment is made, then the individual will need to return to the overflow area. We appreciate the community's patience and understanding as we continue to work through the challenges brought about by COVID-19. Those of you who are joining us via YouTube, you will not be able to make public comment. If you would like to make public comment today, please join us through the WebEx. If you want to do that teleconference, please join us through the WebEx format. Also, if you do join us through WebEx, please mute yourself until the time has come to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. If you have joined via WebEx and wish to speak during the public hearing, please use the raise your hand feature on the far right next to your name when the public hearing is open for comments. And please wait to be recognized. You will be allowed up to 5 minutes to speak. As previously indicated by the chairman, if you cannot access the raise your hand feature, please physically raise your hand on your screen and we will call you at the time of public comment. The county has live Spanish language interpreter for those, or one is coming for those present, and we'll be broadcasting the Spanish version of this hearing via the published Spanish WebEx and YouTube links. If you are in our board chambers and need a translator, please raise your hand. And I've asked for some assistance from a kind lady from Valley Voices to make that request in Spanish. Seeing no hands raised, I think that we can continue. We can continue presently. And the last thing I want to note is that materials being presented at today's hearing are available on the county's redistricting website, redistrictkings.com. With those formalities out of the way, I'd like to provide some background to the hearing. As you are all well aware, every 10 years, the county's supervisorial districts must be redrawn so that each district is substantially equal in population. Redistricting determines how neighborhoods and communities are grouped together in supervisorial districts for purposes of electing a board member. The county will, as part of its 2021 redistricting process, hold 5 public hearings. Today, the county is holding its 4th public hearing. The goal of today's hearing is to analyze draft maps submitted on or before October 20th, 2021. The board will take public comment and will attempt to narrow and prioritize the map options for future consideration and approval. Notice of today's public hearing was published on the county's redistricting website, redistrictkings.com. The hearing was also promoted online through the county's redistricting social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Additional efforts to promote the public hearing included a flyer announcing the public hearing posted online and sent out to community organizations, and calls to community organizations to inform them of today's hearing. Finally, notice of the public hearing was published in the Hanford Sentinel. Upon conclusion of the hearing, the county will make available online recordings or written summaries of the public hearing. With all of that behind us now, all those formalities and announcements, I would like to turn the time over to Ken Chalkins, who is physically present, and Doug Johnson, who is present online, both from National Demographics Corporation.
Thank you, and Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors and the staff and the public, thank you for having us here. As you stated, this is towards the end of a process. I just want to make a note. What's fascinating about all this is literally going on around the country. Every jurisdiction, from mosquito abatement districts to school boards to city councils, they are doing this process to try and figure out the best way to represent their districts. And every 10 years, it's this exercise. Happy to present. For me, what I'm going to try and do is present what is the rules of the road, basically, the boundaries within which we have to draw the maps legally. That sounds easy, but it's not. There's boundaries, and then within the boundaries, there's all kinds of variations. So I'm going to do some rules of the road. We're going to look at some maps, and then I'm here to listen as best I can and take notes, and hopefully, as council has suggested, get down to a point where we can narrow it to some what are called focus maps. Next slide, please. Oh, and my colleague, Doug Johnson, is online as well. Whoa, I'm gonna have to see that. Okay. Can y'all see that? No, there's some dates up there.
Didn't transcribe very well.
On screen. Just, I'm concerned about you all. I just can't see the dates there. And I didn't bring a hard copy, I'm sorry.
There you go, sir. Hey, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is it.
Yeah, would you rather me talk, the supervisor here has a hard copy. I didn't print one out. Would you want me to just talk to that? Although I'm concerned about the members of the public not being able to see it.
If we can just give it a moment to try and make it so that we can have that in full screen. Appreciate the public's patience.
Okay. I can fill in a little bit just while we're looking for the dates. I mean, the dates are basically going to tell you what is happened in sequence and what's supposed to happen. The real critical part of this really is supposed to be an iterative process. It's not that easy to just say, here are the maps and that's it. It is literally supposed to be a conversation with, whoa, that's big, the supervisors and the public and the supervisors and the public. We draw the maps as best we can to get a representation of what we're hearing. And so you're supposed to try and narrow it down to get to a point where the public's will is coming through the supervisors to draw the maps. And so the dates that are going to come up here soon, hopefully, will just give you a sense of the sequence that happens. And I might add too, with COVID and everything else, and the census data came in very, very late. And so everything is compressed nationwide. This is not here, it's everywhere. It is so compressed, so everybody is doing all this stuff that would normally take months and months in a matter of a couple of months or weeks. So that's perfect, a little bit more. Can you all see that? Can you see those dates? There you go. Let's go to the next slide. There you go. There we go. So you can see you had your initial hearings in the summer. The census data was supposed to be released in September. It actually was pushed through October. The presentations were made to different cities around, by the way, which is a really good hygiene. A lot of places don't do it around geographically. They do it just at the place where the jurisdiction is. You have lots of discussions at this point at the fourth hearing, and then you'll see by December 7th, we would like to try and select a map, and by the 14th, the map and the ordinance that enables the map would have to be passed. So that sequence again is sort of dictated. The amount of hearings is required, is dictated, and then the sequence is based on how many hearings and how many public engagements the jurisdiction would like to have.
Sir, before you go on, and while we have that, Mr. Chairman, while we have the slide up, there's a couple things that have changed. The map adoption date on December 14th is no longer correct, and council or the CEO could correct me if I'm wrong. There's an assembly bill that came out that allows this process to end on December 7th. And 2 weeks ago, the Board of Supervisors, we voted to adopt that resolution and apply it to the County of Kings, meaning that on December 7th, we could vote in a map and adopt an ordinance on that day.
A week early.
To finalize that product, to finalize this process. The other thing, and I'll bring it up later, maybe in the form of a motion, but I want to give you some time and staff some time to look into this. When you go back to at the top where it says 3 initial hearings, the hearing on July 20th, as you may recall, I know the board recalls, there was some issues with NDCs, some incorrect information posted to your social media pages, posted to the county website, and it was remedied by NDC saying, hey, we'll come back the following week, which is why that July 27th date is on there. However, this will not count in the amount of public hearings. This was going to be a makeup public hearing, for lack of a better term.
This was
the July 27th one.
Okay.
And so now, at least the way I'm reading it and seeing it, it seems that the July 27th makeup date is now being counted as one of the 3 initial public hearings. And so I feel, and again, I'm going to bring this up later on, possibly in the form of a motion, that we do have one more public hearing. And it could be a positive thing, because after all this information, the board and the public's about to absorb, having one more public hearing prior to that December 7th adoption of the maps may be a good thing. So I just want to put that out there right now. And if you guys want to backtrack and look up the July 20th and the 27th situation to make sure what I just said is correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm
Your
happy
pleasure.
to comment. It might be an appropriate time to comment on it, so I'll do that. And Supervisor Valley is correct that we recently passed an ordinance that allows us to pass the district boundaries by resolution. I know that's kind of, using ordinance and resolution in the same sentence, which can be confusing, but essentially we will be passing our district boundaries by resolution and not ordinance. So we hopefully, according to schedule, bring the resolution to adopt district boundaries to the board on the December 7th hearing. With respect to the 3 initial hearings, Supervisor Valley is correct that there was an initial hearing on the 20th. There was some information that was published incorrectly, but I made the determination that it did not void that hearing, that there was still proper noticing. But because there was some information that was incorrectly presented, we did incorporate another hearing out of abundance of caution, but it's my opinion, it is my opinion that both hearings are valid hearings, and I have been counting them as a first hearing and a second hearing. It doesn't change the reality of what happened. We're required to hold 4 hearings. So regardless of how we count those hearings, we are complying with the law. But nevertheless, that's how I have come up with the 5 hearings that I've announced today.
Thank you, counsel.
And let me just get something straight. The ordinance or the resolution says you can do it by the 7th, but you don't have to. You can wait till the 14th if you need to. So that's
Right.
an extra week if you need it. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Supervisor. Next slide, please. So these are the 2 columns here are the most important of the boundaries or the restrictions in drawing the maps. The first is dictated by federal law, and it's the Federal Voting Rights Act. The most critical of which, and the one that it seems obvious, but is the one that is the trickiest when you're drawing maps, is equal population. Every 10 years, population grows and moves and changes. And the law, it's another way of saying it is one person, one vote. You cannot have districts that are significantly bigger or smaller than other districts. Most people sort of have in their head how many members of Congress there are. There's 435 every 10 years. They look at the population of the United States of America, they divide it by 435, and now you have a new congressional size. Same thing happens here or in council districts. And we try and stay within what a 10% discrepancy, meaning 5% above and 5% below. Anything within that is acceptable that you can use. But it's really, really important for you go to places that are really, really fast growing, and you have to readjust based on that growth and or loss of population so that the districts, that everybody here has an equal representation. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair, as it were. The next two pieces of the federal law is I like to point out, it's subtle. The Federal Voting Rights Act suggests that you cannot create districts that dilute the potential political power or the potential political power of a protected class, an ethnic or linguistic class. It doesn't guarantee a seat or anything. It says you can't dilute the potential. The reason that's important is if you have enough people of a class that could, by numbers, dictate 2 seats, but you have a line that draws a piece off and pushes everybody into 1 seat, except for a sliver, that's called packing. You can't do that. But the law says you're not allowed to do that based on the numbers. And it's visible when you see a map. Similarly, you can't crack. If you've got enough for 1 big seat and you draw a line right between them and you push that population into 2, thereby diluting their potential to have potentially an elected representative, you can't crack. That's what that second line really means. You're not allowed to dilute the potential. The third one is no racial gerrymandering. Most people understand gerrymandering in a political sense from political parties, which we're not allowed to do. But that simply means you cannot clearly go and draw lines all kind of squiggly to go and capture a racial or ethnic minority or group, as it were. Sometimes it's a majority and minority, so that you're trying to capture them. And that's almost done. I'll know it when I see it. It's visible. You're not allowed to do that by federal law. So those are the 3 main components that you have to follow. And what ends up happening is you draw maps, and then the significant question is it population balanced? If the maps look good, but you're out of the 10% zone, you won't be able to accept those maps. And you'll see a couple of the examples, they look like decent maps, they're just not population balanced. And so you try and find ways to balance those. On the right-hand side, you'll see what's driven by the California Fair Maps Act. And those are statewide, and these are in order of priority. The first and foremost is that districts have to be contiguous. They have to stick together. You can't hop over and change and move things around. They have to be contiguous. That's the first and most important of the criteria. The second one involves what's called, it's really more of a term of art than science. It's called the community of interest. And what's really powerful about this is that the members of the community and you all are the ones that get to decide what is the community of interest. If you ask people what is a community, most people think geographically, a neighborhood or a community, they think physically, right? But you could very easily do a community of interest as a socioeconomic status. You could do renters versus owners. You could do all sorts of things that are communities, seniors. You're allowed to decide what your community of interest is driving the districts. And you could have more than one. You could have multiple communities of interest, and you go down them to see if you are representing them in the districts that you draw. As long as you have the logic that says this is the community of interest that we took into effect that is important to Kings County, then you can draw them. The third is cities and census designated places, that's CDP. To the extent possible, we try and keep cities and census designated places whole. Sometimes it's not possible. In particular, in districts like Kings County, where you have concentrations of populations in certain areas, and you have to get enough people in a district to do what? To population balance. Sometimes you'll see later, you have to split cities and or census designated places. But you try your best to try and keep a whole, the logic being people in a certain city have an interest in being represented. Easily identified boundaries. I'm not from here, but I bet you if you asked a bunch of people here, they'd be able to talk about freeways and parks and rivers and all kinds of things that are either natural or not natural that divide communities. Sometimes freeways do divide and sometimes they don't. I've seen districts where communities and school districts go underneath a freeway or across the freeway. I've seen places where the freeway absolutely designates a community of interest or an area. And so you can decide based on the maps after you do the first two, this road, that part, this XYZ identifies a certain boundary that makes sense for Kings County. So that's the fourth. And the fifth is compact, and that starts to get more towards not racial gerrymandering, but you don't want to see districts that are jumping over or skirting around or trying to get somewhere. You'll see some districts that do move and do have some lineage and they have some spaces. But again, you'll know it when you see it. It becomes plainly obvious when things are not compact. And again, it's in a district that has urban populations and then rural. You'll see districts that look like they're moving because there's not a lot of people in the space. But when you get down to it, you have to try and make it as compact as possible. That last point is really, really important. Again, we all know gerrymandering, or we heard about it, we read about it, is really politically driven. You're not allowed to do anything with political parties. It's just not, it's against the law. You're not allowed to do it. Let me stop and ask if there's any questions or comments on that, and then I'll go to the next slide.
Do you take any of our current addresses into play when you draw the map?
We don't.
How do we know that you don't draw us out of our own district?
Well, what we do is draw districts based on those criteria. You all know where you live. You look at the maps, and we try our best. Let me put it to you this way. If the people in this county elected you, Supervisor Verbone, for 4 years, and we draw a map that has you only elected, and forgive me, I don't have your cycle in my mind, but that only has you elected after 2 years and you'll have to run for re-election, that would be a sign that you're not paying attention to the will of the people who elected you for 4 years. We don't draw maps that way. But if you identify that and say, we would like to try and do something to protect the will of the people, you can. It's something that you can consider. We don't do it when we're drawing maps. We're actually using those two columns. If that makes sense.
No.
That doesn't make sense.
Well, if I could add to it, like last week you saw in the LA Times, the commission that underwent redistricting put out the new maps for the city of LA, actually took some LA city council members out of their districts. They didn't like it. So I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, when they adopted the maps, they ignored the commission's recommendations and they voted maps that kept them in their own districts.
Let me a piece of emphasis just because I live close to there. They didn't just draw them out of their maps. They literally had two districts that they would be representing 10% of who they represent now. And one in particular with 0, they just completely moved. The other thing is the city of Los Angeles is using an advisory commission. Those commissioners were appointed by the members of the city council. And so it went in there, it's complicated down there. That was clearly something that was being done in a way that's way different than what's going on here. You don't have a commission here. You all are trying to make that decision with the public's input. My point is you want to stay away from what I would call incumbency protection, because that kind of moves things around. I'll tell you where it gets the most complicated. Yeah.
Ken, let me just add one thing too. I do want to clarify, as Ken noted, that we're far and away the primary considerations are the federal laws and the state laws. As Ken mentioned, we are aware of where you live, and you know, certainly if we can do something within all those criteria without, as Ken said, violating the will of the voters, that was the choice we made. So
Yeah.
it's not that we're doing this thing coming blind or anything like that. We're, as he laid out, we're not drawing lines to protect the supervisors. We're simply trying to allow the voters to decide which ones have earned re-election. When we can do that after following, as you mentioned, all the previous criteria.
Everything else.
And you see it with the California Citizens Commission right now too. They're redrawing assembly districts and Senate districts. Even our current assembly member in the map that came out yesterday, it drew Assembly Member Salas out of his district because the draft map that came out yesterday is now Kings County extending it to Tulare County, where our assembly rep lives in Kern County. So they don't care, man. They're taking the data and they're breaking these things down, and it happens. Not saying that map won't change, but today that's where it does that.
And I'll just accentuate the point where it's really, really poignant is districts that are going from at-large to districts. When folks are elected at-large, they live anywhere. Then when you go to
That wasn't the question.
No, okay. Thank
The
you.
question was, do you use our addresses in place to start with a map drawing? And he said,
Not to start with.
that's an
indeed.
answer. That's
Sure.
fine. Move on.
Thank you. Next slide. So this is the current census data. Your districts, obviously, you have a total of 140 thereabouts. Divide that again by 5. And you can see the deviation that you have is if you look at the percent deviation in 4 and 5, you're above the 10% threshold. That simply means that you have to adjust in order to get within population balance. Okay? That's just, the numbers are dictating that. What I would call your attention to as well is you have total population. And folks, this is not citizens, it's not residents, it's adults, it's children, it's numbers of people who live in the district. What's important is you look at total population, but when you're also looking at the earlier part, the federal law that says you can't dilute, you're also wanting to look at what's called CVAP, Citizen Voting Age Population. And you'll see usually it's a decline from total population. And you want to make sure those numbers are staying in a zone that allows for protected classes a shot at being represented. Sometimes that's a significant deviation. So you can see Hispanic, white, Black, Asian American, et cetera, within Kings County in the current districts. But that top line is the population total. That's why that's significantly why we're here. We have to redraw the maps. You all have to redraw the maps in order to get within a population balance. What happens below that deviation? You'll see there's a lot of variation that you can use to get to different numbers.
Could I add to what you just said?
Of course.
That is very important, very important. So when you look at when you look at the districts, and as you pointed out, up at the top, total population, District 2, 86% Hispanic, District 4, 64% Hispanic, District 5, 51% Hispanic. So there's 3 districts. But then as you pointed out, the actual citizen voting age population, it drops it from 3 Hispanic majority districts to only 1.
Yeah, meaning above 50%. Yes. Yeah. And the question is, how indicative are those numbers in, again, allowing for the potential to elect somebody? And those are the numbers you're going to see in all of the maps. How you use those and how you choose to have them influence how you draw the maps is up to you all and what you're trying to accomplish. Again, the top line is they have to be balanced. That's the most critical part here. Okay. Next slide, please. Again, I described this earlier. We spent a lot of time with communities and members, and these are hard questions. They're not really easy. You think they're easy, but they're not. We really ask for what's the neighborhood? What is the geographic boundary? What is the community? Neighborhoods are defined in all sorts of different ways. And communities of interest is, again, I've seen all kinds of variability in how you define your community. When we do school districts, do you do it by attendance zone? Do you do it by geography? Do you do it by, all kinds of things? But those are the driving interests in determining. Let's put it this way. When you have a map and someone says, how did you draw that map? You want to be able to say, here's what we used. We used these neighborhoods, these communities of interest, and that drove the map. You're not allowed to racially gerrymander. You're not allowed to dilute. You're not allowed to do all those rules. But what did you use to draw the maps and how did they come about? You want to be able to answer that in a way that uses these kinds of things. Next slide, please. Thanks, Matt. So what we heard and submissions and all the things so far are the following, and it's not a full list. Clearly, the number 4th, Hanford, it's the big city of the county, but there is a highway, 198, and there's 3 below it right now. City of Hanford, again, currently is split into 4. Sometimes that makes perfect sense. And so you remember that other thing that said we try and keep cities whole? You do, unless there's a community of interest that makes it so that we need to pull in different ways. And you'll see Hanford is one that is split 2, 3, 4 different ways in the maps that were drawn. Again, you're going to need to be able to defend how you drew the maps and what made you go into Hanford or out of Hanford for different districts. Feeder schools are really important. Attendance zones and feeder schools, because that often determines a community of interest. Transportation and various ethnic communities, Portuguese community, et cetera. Again, not an exhaustive list. And if something comes up today and say, my God, you didn't include X, well, then we need to include X. So you all can say that and say, we need to include X, Y, or Z. But these are the significant strains that we looked at. And again, in large counties like this, where you have large rural areas and certain population centers, in order to population balance, you have to go to where the people are, right? It's the old phrase, why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. You have to go to where the people are to be able to balance the population. So the districts look big, but you need to do it by people. Next. We're going to get to the maps now. We had, the deadline for submitting was October 20th. Thank you, Council. And so for this, we had 15 submitted that are draft maps. The public had 11. We've produced 4. When I say compliant or non-compliant, that again principally means population balanced. Now, we have also told people when you submit maps, we don't ask somebody to do the entire district. You could come in and say, look, I just care this community needs to stay whole. And we would try and integrate that into a map. A lot of people drew full-on maps. Some of them you'll see were not population balanced, and so we're not considering them here, but we do have a number of 9 of them that are compliant in a population way, and that's what we'd want to have the conversation about here. Questions or comments? Okay, let's go to the next one. We wanted to show you these. Supervisor Valley, I think this gets at, no, sorry, the one before that. Oh, sorry, the next one. This gets at your issue, I think, that you presented earlier. The next one, please. Thanks, Matt. Keep going. No, you're going backwards. There you go. I think the bottom row shows what was showing up on the website, and then the top shows the full county. These maps were not compliant. They were not population balanced. And we can get into it, but literally the numbers were off by a measure of 15, 20, 20%. And so they might have good ideas, but they were not compliant. So we did not consider them necessarily. We consider them looking at them, but they weren't. We did the numbers on them.
They're out of the 10%.
Yes.
Variant
Yes.
or what's the word?
Deviation. Deviation. Yes. And then the next slide as well, I think, are also.
Those came from the public?
Yes. When it says public 101, 2, 105, the ones that we drew based on feedback, you'll see NDC. So also these are another 3 that were not compliant based on population. We wanted to show you them to say that we looked at them, they're there, but the numbers literally just, they're not balanced. And you probably would have to drive deeper into Hanford and other population centers to see where they weren't, but they were significantly out of balance. So let's go to the next slide. Please. Okay, so these are public maps. Forgive me, I'm gonna use my glasses here. That show maps that were population balanced. And this is great because they're all in one screen, although they're not really big. I usually go back and forth just so you can see the differences. But if you look at 101, 103, you can see literally District 2 goes from a big, huge horizontal on the bottom, right? Supervisor, you're to 103 goes to a vertical, right, on the right. And you can see the top districts, you know, kind of sort of stay the same a little bit. District, I think that's 3 at the top, moves over a little bit in 103. But those are population balanced. They capture different people in different places. But you can see that District 2 comes all the way over in 101. And in 103, it stays as an eastern border district. In 104, right, is that the pink takes the entire bottom and it pushes District 2 up to the north. These are population balanced. And we can look at, and I think it's in the slides here, the numbers based on the statistics to these. You can see where the numbers, Supervisor Valley, that you were talking about, the total population and the ethnic breakdown, and you can see voting age population as well as total population. That make sense? Okay, so again, it's really important to know you can make population balance with communities of interest in lots of different ways, and you can see the broad swath of areas in rural counties where there's not a lot of people, but you have to take in the entire area, and then you have to go up and grab different populations. And by the way, Doug, you're on the line. If you have anything to add, please jump in. The next slide, please. Okay. So, and then there's 2 more publics, and you can see in 106, there's a Western district. And again, 2 moves all the way over to the west, 4 moves to the east. In 108, 2 stays virtually, Supervisor, where you are, and 4 stays in the west. And then in the NDC map, 201, look at my note. So District 5 in 201 is out of Hanford. Hanford is split, but District 5 is taken out of Hanford. And it allows it to grab population elsewhere. Okay? Currently, I think we said there are 4 districts in Hanford, right? And so you have to zero in and see it. And I know it's in your packet there. You should be able to see it. But in NDC 201, that's what we tried to do, is then there's a whole southern district that goes east to west. And you can see the 2 populations on both sides of the district. And then it circles in and around Hanford to grab populations for the other districts. It significantly changes District 2.
So now that you're going into the NDC map, sir, do you, like the board in the handout, we have your NDC 201 map.
Yes.
Enlarged.
Yep.
Can we see it that way on the map? Because the public can't see that.
I don't know if you can zero in.
You don't have slides prepared where it's just your map?
No, we didn't put it together like that. Sorry. They're definitely online.
How does the public have input if they don't have access to watch it?
So
And
if
if
you
people
have the
can watch
capability in the
this
room,
on WebEx, and they definitely can't see that.
Doug?
this is Doug. If we have the capability in the room, we can switch over to the interactive review map, which allows us to pull up individual maps and to zoom in down to like the individual city block details.
I could do that if you guys wish me to.
It's an excellent tool. It looks good. We can enlarge
So
it and
can you
get in.
share? Can you share with Doug, and Doug can do that?
Oh, I think whoever's there can do that too.
Oh, Matt, you can do that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Gives you time to catch a breather. You have enough water?
I got enough water.
You get? Okay.
Thanks. But I'm running out.
Run. Can we get the gentleman another water? I know he's laboring up there. Hey, while he's doing that too, the IT guys, is there a way that when he goes back to his presentation, that you could put an insert so the chairman can be seen on the screens? Because I don't know if he knows when when the presentation's up, we can't see the chairman, and I want him to feel that he's part of the meeting. Okay.
We know he's there.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of not fair to him either.
Looks like he got a bad haircut, is all I gotta say.
Now you got me self-conscious, Supervisor. Usually I got a camera from behind that shows my bald spot. At least you don't have that. You're showing me up front.
Hey, on my color left, they don't even show up in the picture.
Okay, that's great, Matt.
Adjust the
There.
lighting.
So whatever map you want me to pull up, just let me know because I have to select it here.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Ed. Oh, you got a little refrigerator under your dais now?
So which map did you want to see, Supervisor? Or do you want to run through all of them and then come back? Or Matt, can you toggle back and forth? I just want to ask, do you want to look at?
Honestly, obviously set to the whole board, but I assumed tonight you were going to go map by map in large so we could see it. Now, I don't know if you, well, I would think in fairness that any public map that met your criteria.
Yep.
Should be presented on the screen, and then your the maps that we hired you and your company to produce should be shown that way as well.
Sure.
Like 6 Mac total, probably.
I don't know how many of the how many public maps are left after
There
they
are-
screened out, the ones that weren't
There
compliant?
are 5 public that are balanced and 4 NDC that are balanced. So that would take a while, but
Yeah.
yep. So which ones did you want to look at?
Well,
First.
Is there a map, a public map based on the criteria that you put out? And I'm going to ask you this later for your NDC maps, but is there a public map based on all the criteria, the laws that you had, that
Yeah.
had to be used, that you could say meets the spirit and the intent of those laws?
Yeah, there are 5 of them.
Okay, altogether, those are the best that.
Well, those are the public maps, and there's 4 that we drew based on criteria as well.
Okay.
So you're welcome to look at the 5 and ours.
Okay.
So if you want to, let's start with public 101. Let's just try it, Matt, and we'll see what happens. We'll go through the public ones. So if you can zoom in and you can, if you go down to the bottom, I think you can layer in. What would be best, Doug? What do you want to layer so they can see?
Just the map.
Just the map? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you want it, again,
He has the existing
Oh,
district
take-
outlines, and that's helpful. So the
Okay.
public could see the red dash line, right, is our current districts, and the blue colors are the proposed map, correct?
yes, correct. So you see where District 2, again, becomes a completely southern map, right? I'm southern district, right? This is 101, right? And again, this one, I think there are 3 districts that have a piece of Hanford here, right? 3, 4, and 5, is that right?
And this is public 101 map here that was.
Yes, sir.
And it's balanced to meet all the criteria.
Yep. Well, yes, it's balanced, population balance, which is the most critical. That's the foundational element.
Okay, so now from there, could you scroll down to show the data, the census data?
Is the census data there?
Not, let me see.
No. Right.
No, is it below the map?
So are you looking for the overlays or the data for each
I'm
district?
looking for the numbers, Doug.
But the numbers for each district are in a separate PDF document that's posted to the website that shows the percentages of each district. What's on this map that Ken's referring to is you can zoom in and you can highlight kind of where the Latino citizen voting age population is and where the renters are and things like that. But that's showing it graphically. It's not going to give you numbers by district. For those, you have to go to the PDF.
And I know that this one has, to your earlier comment, Supervisor, this one has two districts that have the citizen voting age for the Hispanic community
Yeah.
above 50%.
Yes.
I know this district has that for sure.
No, yes, it has District 2 at 74% Hispanic voting age and District 4 at 60%.
Yeah.
But it drops District 3 down to 28%.
Right.
Um,
Right. So what ends up happening is what we call the ripple effect. When you push one way, it does things to the other. But in this map, you can see 2 goes way up, probably because of Avenal and Corcoran and others. You have a high percentage, right? In District 2, and District 4 captures some of Hanford as well. And those are above citizen voting age for the Latino community. Shall we move to the others? Okay, let's go to 102, please, Matt. And make sure to undo 101.
Really quick, if you'd like, I can bring up the demographic information Supervisor Valley was.
And you can
interested in.
toggle.
For you to toggle. through.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing because I'm specifically sharing the Firefox browser. I'm going to stop sharing that and share my entire screen. So then that way I can easily toggle back and forth to where we can look at all the.
I think that helps them with the presentation. And
Okay, apologies. Doug, we're looking at you. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Matt. That's very helpful. You're welcome.
I'm going to
Public 101
right now. Okay.
Okay, so let's hold it there for a second. And you can see again, you're exactly right, Supervisor. The dotted lines are existing, and then you can see how it's all adjusted, right? And so 2 and 4 goes into Hanford, the bottom part of Hanford, and it becomes, you'll see in the numbers, it becomes a significant citizen voting age Hispanic. And District 1, I think, is outside of Hanford, right? Keep going below, and then you'll see the number. Oh, you want it? There you go. There we are with the size again. One more. All right. So in that, you'll see 2 and 4 citizen voting age. Ooh, that's too big. Thanks, Matt. You're doing great. So 2 and 4, 74%, 60% citizen voting age. And you're exactly right. It drops 1, 4, and 5. 1, 3, and 5. Right? And then the other communities have different adjustments as well. But you can see.
Yeah, and just to be clear on the wording, it's not dropping them, they're just not as high.
Sorry. But you can see the percent deviation is damn near spot on, right? You're only at 0.0 something. That is literally equal population and balanced. Make sense? All right, let's go to 102.
102 is not balanced, so you can skip
Yeah,
the
right,
103.
sorry, 103 is where you want to go. Thank you, sorry. So you'll see that adjusts a little bit, so that you'll have, well, we'll wait till we see the numbers, but you can see again, that's not 2, it doesn't, that's okay. District 2 doesn't go all the way across. And if you'll look at those numbers, so this is number 103. So the percentage citizen voting age in District 1, 2, and 4 are north of 50%, right? But they're not where District 2 was before, which was closer to 70%. And you'll see the balance in the other communities, the other ethnic and communities in the citizen voting age. And that one, that one is not as, it is population balanced, but again, it's not at 0. All it has to do is be less than 10 total, right? And the next one would be 104. This one, again, instead of 2, you have 1 as the Southern District, and it comes up a little higher. That's the better map there. You can see it. And District 104 also has 3 districts that have a majority of Hispanic citizen voting age or close. Let's put it that way.
So, so, just for the public, and as you keep pointing out the Hispanic majority numbers, is there a law that says, based on our population, our census data, that the county has to have X amount of Hispanic majority districts?
I've turned to council for that.
Hey, Supervisor Valley, can we kind of hold these questions till we get back? We can bring that back to us. I want to respect everyone's time here this evening. So let's try and move through these maps and get them all laid out, and then we can go ahead and swing back into the questions
Fair enough.
process with that, and that way we get through this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you'll see that one is 55, and then District 2 is 48, and District 4 is 51. Again, close to the 50%, but they're not completely. And you can see the map changes geographically, and it goes to get different populations. The next is 106 and 108, and I think those also have 3 potential at the citizen voting age. And again, you don't want to only focus on the Hispanic voting. There are all the other ethnicities are represented here. But you can see for 106, you'll see District 2 not only moves from east to west, but then goes all the way up north. And District 3 becomes a compact Hanford seat, right? And 5 gets up into the corner, but it still has to come into Hanford to grab population because it can't be balanced otherwise. There's just no way to do it. That would be for you, Supervisor, right? For the 5th. On the fly, you're doing great, Matt. Thank you. So you can see the numbers here. 4 then becomes a significant, and 3 becomes the next, right? So that's just 2. I'm sorry, I misspoke. That one has 2 that are above, north of the 50% for the Hispanic population in this district, in this map. And the next would be 108. These are all, again, public submissions online, and they're all balanced. So they're all ones that you could actually say, yes, we can go with these maps. It's up to you then to determine what the communities of interest that are represented and how you want to defend those maps or explain them. What's the logic of the map? And I'm sorry, I think 108 is the one that has, if you go down to the bottom below that. Citizen voting age is, 53, 57, and 52 is 1, 2, and 4 have north of 50. Again, I want to emphasize that these don't guarantee anything, right? The law says you have to give the opportunity for potential representation. That's the way the law is written. You can't guarantee anything, obviously. And then we can look at the NDC maps, of which there are 4. NDC 201, Supervisor Fagundes, District 5 is drawn, is not in Hanford, in 201, NDC 201. And it's, you're grabbing the population elsewhere. Sorry. There we go. Nope. Keep going down to the statistics for. And you'll see in 201, as it relates to the Hispanic population, you've got District 2 and District 4 are the ones that are north of 50%. But you can see how all this, the rotation is different. And for District 5, the issue is not being in Hanford a significant issue for District 5. It pushes what is otherwise a piece of District 5 now, not. And so you're representing a different space, right? So it all rotates. But again, those are all population balanced, and they take into account the communities of interest that we heard back at the very least over the past 5 months or so. NDC 202, I have a number of notes here. So this one splits Lenmore in the middle there. That's also, you remember, if you remember the cities and or census designated places, you try and keep Lenmore, but there's a population in Lenmore. So it allows the beige district to grab population as well as the pink or purple one. But this one also 202 has, from the Latino perspective, has a couple of districts that are above 50%. In this one, D3 supervisor has most of Hanford. That's NDC 202. And so you'll see here districts 2, 1, and 2, and 4 are north of 50, and you'll see 4 is just at 51% citizen voting age. And Supervisor Valley, you can see a significant drop from the total to voting age, to your point earlier, on all across the board. It's not just the amount of people, but it's the citizen voting age that's critical in this decision. 2 more. So District 2, the NDC 203, in this one, we decided to unify Lenmore, but what that does is it drags District 2, again, all the way to a southern border, pushes District 2, the unified, the pink, up into, to capture Lenmore, right? And then you have this horizontal for the green up at the top. And we'll look at that from a, and for there, that one is District 2 is north of 50 and District 4 is north of 50. So some of these have 2 that are north of 50 for the Latino population, and some of them have 3 that are north, not as north, because again, you can't get the population otherwise. You're looking for the numbers and the balance. And it's just a matter of, you know, where the communities of interest lie and how you want them to be split up. Again, look at, I just want to point, that is almost spot on as far as population balance. And then the last one, NDC 204, again, we split Lenmore again. And Hanford at this point splits into 3 different places here. It sounds easy to try and split it into certain, you know, you give the rules and you split it, but there's multiple ways to split the districts. And it really comes down to how you want to define. In this one, you can see District 1 and District 2 and District 4 are just above, you know, 1 and 4 are just above 50%. Does that give that community of interest a significant opportunity to elect somebody from their community? That's the question. But they all are balanced. This one's a little less balanced. Can you just zoom in there a little bit? I just want to point out, this is within 8%, right? Or 8, so -4 and +4. So you can see the difference there. Some of them are spot on, but as long as it's within 10, you're okay. For another 10 years until you have to redo this exercise. Sorry for not having this at the get-go, but I think that was a good exercise. How would you want to proceed at this point?
Well, thank you for breaking that down. I think everyone that's joined us has now had a opportunity to see how these districts are broken out, and does that kind of complete your breakdown of how things have been drawn and
Yes, sir.
maybe we can okay.
And
perfect.
If you're okay, I'm happy to stay here and answer questions, but I need to take notes based on the conversation that's going to be had. So I'll stay here until you stop talking to me, and then I'll sit down. How's that?
Yeah, no, so with that, with the, you know, at the pleasure of the board, why don't we go ahead and move to public comment? And Is there any objection to that?
At what point are you going to allow us to ask some questions, Mr. Chair, the board members?
Well, that's when we close the public hearing and we bring it back to the board for discussion and questions.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we'll allow the public comment, and then we'll come back, bring it back to the board as we typically do in a public hearing. So with that, Madam Clerk, at this time, let's go ahead and open the public hearing and take testimony in the order that it has been requested and received.
Okay, the first speaker that I have is Stephen Mendes. If you can come forward and speak at the podium. Yes.
Hello, my name is Stephen Mendes. I live at 1701 Corcoran, Norville Avenue in Corcoran, California. Lived there most of my adult life, and well, I'm here mostly to ask that you take into account the economic differences between these different regions. There's nothing south of Corcoran until you hit the Tulare County line. So that's essentially, that's us. There's nothing south of us. There's nothing west of Corcoran until you, excuse me, hit Kettleman City. So all of that is farmland. I see why our district has to be so big in order to reach the population needed for the representation. But that's just how it is there. It's sparsely populated. I think we should also be looking at water needs as far as redistricting. I see parts of the Hanford growing and continuing to grow, and I don't know where we're going to get that water. So I only got a chance to look over the full draft today, past couple of days. I think I would prefer the Public 101 or the NDC 203 that keeps District 2 large and in my mind, whole as a farming community. The farming we do there is much different than orchards and pistachios and stuff like that. We do open field farming. We count on groundwater a lot. It's very important. It's a totally different environment than you get on this side of Hanford, so to speak, north of Hanford. So I would like to see more services in that area south of Corcoran. 43 is seeing some high-speed rail construction, but there's nothing until you hit Pond Road, and that's actually another county. So it's a little shame that all of that has gone ignored for all this time. And I think if we get more representation, maybe we'll see more development in that area for everyone that lives there. It's a big area. It's mostly Mexican American. I use that term because we're not multicultural like some of the East Coast cities. We don't get Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans. We're Mexican Americans mostly here. Portuguese that also into the farming. But it's a specific, to me, it's a specific regional breakdown as far as the needs of this county. And District 2, I believe, needs to stay as whole as possible. I think we should help Stratford because they're having a lot of trouble. North Hanford seems to be doing well. I know the base is always there to fund things that are needed in Lemoore. Other than farming, we don't have anything that provides that kind of tax base for us. I'd hate to see our tax base be diminished simply because some numbers on a demographic, say, you know, we need to break this up. And as far as the voting age and the Hispanic population, there's not going to be much you can do about that. The Hispanic population is growing. I understand taking that into account, and you, sir, worried about being redistricted out of your job. You know, I had to commute to every little town on that map. Sometimes that's just part of the job.
My question was
No.
that a consideration? And it was no.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, I get
Yes
you.
or no answer is all.
I get you. And the changes that I think need to be made, they need to be made now before water, appropriation of water gets more difficult and our population starts to grow. So I'm glad you're taking this into consideration now. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we have Kathleen Jorgensen.
Good evening. Kathleen Jorgensen. I live at 1423 North Irwin Street. I'm in District 4. I support Public Map 101. I'm a constituent of District 4, and it seems that my representative is attending remotely. Let me take this off. I do this. I've noticed this at all the meetings that I've attended online or watched later. The fact that my representative attends as he's residing thousands of miles away really highlights the need for redrawing district lines that will enable us to truly be represented by citizens who truly reflect our community. In the past, our lines have been drawn in a way that seems to give advantage to a particular population that does not reflect the makeup of our community. The current maps have cracked the area of South Hanford into 3 different districts. This type of mapping also has divided the community of Lemoore. As I look at this board, I don't feel represented. And many of my friends are not represented. I think that we really need to look at the law. We need to look at the spirit of the law. We need to not be protecting seats. We need to be representing the people. People in Armona, in District 4, have many, many needs that need to be addressed, and they're not being addressed. They're not being addressed because we've got an absent representative. So I would request Public Map 101, and I'd love to see this board next year look more like our community. Thank you.
Next, we have Claire Fidiassi.
Hello, my name is Claire Fidiassi, and I'm here in support of Public Map 101 that creates 2 Latino majority districts. I had intended to speak about Map 101 versus the other maps that have been submitted, but the shapefiles and data tables needed for an authoritative evaluation were not shared, despite a request dating back to July 27th, until just after 3 a.m. this morning. A surface evaluation of the other maps reveals that Map 101 is by far the most equitable option for Kings County. I would like to address my concerns about the job that NDC is performing here in Kings. Doug Johnson of NDC via email this morning claimed, quote, "Sorry about that, lots of late nights these days," referring to his sending a supposed file titled Kings County that was actually Fresno County data. I don't know how much Kings County has paid NDC for redistricting, but in terms of vendor services, they are significantly underperforming as it relates to encouraging and facilitating community input and making data available for public discussion. In regards to maps that are currently available online, it is of concern that maps on NDC hosted websites could potentially be deleted or inactivated after the active redistricting process is complete. I would request that all maps be posted on the Kings County Board of Supervisors website and stay live for 10 years as required by the Fair Map Acts, Section 12, 21508, Area 2G. And I would like to acknowledge the County Council's premise that the Board of Supervisors is, quote, following the law. The Fair Maps Act states in Section 21608, a good faith effort is required. The council shall take steps to encourage residents, including those in underrepresented and non-English communities, to participate. Requiring someone to stand and acknowledge that they need interpretation may not seem to be an issue to any English speakers, but it is not specifically inclusive and could seem as exclusionary to some. The fact that Kings County is 57% Latino and we have a significant Spanish-speaking population, it concerns me that on several occasions, the Board of Supervisors has had to hustle at the last minute to try to get someone here to be an interpreter. And I think that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
You.
Next, we have Alicia Ramirez.
Hello, my name is Alicia Ramirez. I live in 13921 6th Street in Armona. I'm here as a resident, and I'm also in District 4. And I just wanted to say to the board, thank you for making sure that we are heard today and making sure that you guys provide these maps so that we can look over those maps and make sure that we take this back to our community and make sure that we do our outreach as well as you as board members, making sure that it's provided to them as well. I also would like to say thank you to Valley Voices for providing some of this information, some of these maps to make sure that we are all represented equally and making sure that our voices are heard. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kenneth Olson.
Do I need to go to that mic?
No, either one.
All right. So I live at 833 East Orange Street in Hanford, California. I am here as a resident of Kings County living in the city of Hanford. The current district boundaries are not representative of the diversity found in Kings County. I urge you to develop boundary lines which ensure that the diversity is represented here on the Board of Supervisors in the future. The socioeconomic considerations need to be taken into account as well as water and land usage. Incumbency protection should not at all be considered as a factor. Please support the map developed by Valley Voices, Map Public 101. This map is more representative of the diversity found in Kings County. Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to take the maps down. Yeah, that'd be great. We're going to remove the maps just because he's not able to access some of the WebEx information here. Next, we have Anthony Lopez.
Good evening. My name is Anthony V. Lopez. My address is 600 Sonoma Lane in Avenal, California, 93204. I'm a lifelong resident of Avenal and also its city manager. I come here to urge the board to look at and hopefully push forward the Public Map 101. I spent some time reviewing all the maps on the website. I know at first it was a little confusing to understand. Some of the maps weren't showing the full picture, excluding both Corcoran and Avenal. Now that we've been able to get a more good presentation on those maps, it does seem to me that we hope that in the future, the board can consider a map that can be more representative of the communities across the county, not just Corcoran and Avenal. So that's something I'd like to definitely voice as part of the community of Avenal. And likewise, want to just thank the county admins who came to the city council meeting about a month ago. So thank you for that. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Lupe Chavez.
Good evening, Supervisors. My name is Lupe Chavez. I live in 304 East San Mateo Street in Avenel, California. Also a long resident of Avenel. Also here pretty much voicing the same. I think everybody said already, you know, big support of 101, Public 101. I think it does represent. Sorry to hear that you feel unrepresentative. I know Mr. Valle, you've done an awesome job keeping us representing Avenel, and something that I think all districts should have. So pretty much in support of 101. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Barbara Castle.
Hi, I just wanted to make sure you could hear my voice. My name is Barbara Castle. I live at 331 McCreary in Hanford, which is in District 5. I, as several other people here, I'm an almost lifetime resident of Kings County. I was born in the Corcoran Hospital back when you had one. And I went to Corcoran High. I went to Fresno State for college, but then I came back here to work and I worked until I retired. So I am here speaking in support of the Public Map 101 as well. I thought it was nicely done. I appreciated that it had clear, mostly straight line boundaries, not a lot of peninsulas or bays, or I don't know what you call them, little, I don't know the word for it. I didn't feel a lot of really crooked boundaries. I thought it was really nice and straight. I thought it was balanced nicely, and I just am in support of that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ron Bates.
Evening. I'm Ron Bates. I live at 317 West Windsor in Hanford. I'm here to ask the board to, just as I ask you July 20th and other times, make some choices here tonight that show that Kings County no longer needs to be part of the Voter Rights Act. You have a map here that is ready to go. It's been researched. It fits the criteria. The gentleman over here who presented earlier said that it was one of the best maps up there. And I hope that you will consider it so. And look, and whatever ones you look at, consider that 101 came from the people, came from the public. And that's the people you serve. And we are looking forward to seeing what choices you make. Also, I hope that you don't rush into this December 7th thing. The law says that you can take to the 14th. What's the rush? Take time and look this over. And remember that you serve the public. And this map 101 is what the public wants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Yvette Villarreal.
Good evening, supervisors and fellow residents of Kings County. My name is Yvette Chaidez, and I'm a resident of Hanford, and I live in District 4. I live at 1200 North Irwin Street in Hanford. I have lived in Kings County for 30 years, which is the majority of my life, during which I have lived in every single district. I love my community and the people who live in it. Which is why I cleared my schedule to make sure I could make it to the only public redistricting meeting that was held in the evening time where most working people could participate. Which is where my first issue lies in this redistricting process and honestly in all supervisorial meetings. Why was only one public hearing scheduled in the evening at a time that is convenient for most working people? If the Board of Supervisors and NDC truly had an interest in including the public in this process, more of an effort would have been made to ensure more of our residents were able to participate. I'm here to make sure that every single Kings County resident gets the equal and fair representation that we are entitled to by law, and to amplify the voices of folks who are working or do not feel comfortable in this setting but still deserve to be fairly represented. I ask that the Board of Supervisors thoughtfully considers Public Map 101, which I feel best represents our communities and their interests, whether or not it writes you out of your district. There is no reason why South Hanford should ever have been split into 3 separate districts, and I expect to see lines redrawn using accurate census data this time so that we as taxpayers do not end up paying exorbitant litigation costs like Kern County and areas of Southern California. Just a friendly reminder that you are elected to, and it is a privilege to represent the interests of the constituents in your respective districts. And if your constituents are not happy or being properly represented, you can and will be replaced. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jesus Garcia.
Good evening, Supervisors, Dr. Johnson, members of the public. My name is Jesus Garcia, and I am the crafter of Map 101. I'm not the creator. The creator are the people behind me. The creator are the people who on phone calls, emails, messages said, Jesus, we need this moved, we need that moved, we need the other thing moved. Also to Doug Johnson and the NDC family, my condolences to you and the troubles that you're having. Family is very important. And I think that's why we're here. It's about taking care of family, the family that you have behind us. Map 101 is absolutely the best because it was created by the community. I drew it, software, there's tons of software out there that allow you to do that. You can go out there, find yourself a partisan that can do this. My job was to assist the community. Map 101 has a deviation of, I'm sorry, what is it? Less than 1%, 1/2 of 1%, a third? So it can be done. We don't need maps that are 6, 7, 8, 9.9%. You can have exact districts, districts that are created by the community, that are exact, that will go forward. Board, you are at the precipice of an insurmountable question. You are at the point where you're going to begin to hand over the reins of power to the community. For too long, what we see here, we see all across the valley. And what do we see here? Not a bunch of, white men and one Latino. We see people that have been unresponsive and unrepresentative to the needs of their community. Why? Because in the past, you could draw your own lines, okay? I've been doing this 20, 30 years or so. I had a degree in urban planning from UCLA, worked at the US Census Bureau headquarters, Washington, DC, in population division. I was at 9/11 in Sacramento, having a meeting with Richard Polanco as they were developing the first batch of maps from there. Unfortunately, I had to cancel that meeting. We had to cancel the meeting and drive back to take care of our family's home. This is not your uncle's redistricting. This is not longer your crazy uncle's redistricting. There's a new thing called the Fair Maps Act. Where did the Fair Maps Act come? It came from my home, that wonderful giant metropolis of Bakersfield, Kern County Board of Supervisors, Kern County High School District. You can thank them for what we're here for. What does the Fair Maps require? Very, very simple. It's not very complicated. It's not complicated at all. It requires 2 or 3 things. 1, population balance. I have here a printout of our maps. I have a deviation of 49 people from high to low district. So it can be done, okay? I know that some public maps have come out. NDC has generated some maps.
Some of their variance is what, 6, 7, 8%. Why don't we ask them to generate new maps at, let's say, 1%? I'll give you one on the other side. How's that? That's a challenge. What our map, our map, the community's map, generates 2 Latino majority. It creates 2 majority Latino population districts, districts 2 and districts 4. That at 70, and I believe at like 85%. What it does second is generate 2 Latino majority CVAP districts, citizen voting age, population 18 and over that are US citizens. 2 very high Latino majorities. What it does, the third thing that it does, which is not on any of the NDC sites, and is really something that they don't really want you to know about much, which is the Voter Rights Act. Now, what's V of the Voter Rights Act is vote. The state of California has statistics on voter registration and voting. We have the voter registration file from the county of Kings. All that can be very easily analyzed, put up there. In fact, that'd be good. Put it up there for the next one. NDC has done this in other areas where they add the voter registration and voting numbers. We can do it. I can do it. Next week or the next time around, you will have, hopefully if I can request some time to present actually our presentation, because again, I only received the file in a readable format at 3 or 4 o'clock in this morning. Again, Mr. Johnson, I know you're busy, but as Claire mentioned, and as I spoke to your council on Friday, this board received a letter on July 27th requesting that once this process was underway, that you provide us, the community, shape files or geodatabases. Again, thank you for having them. I have them. I'll be analyzing them. Sorry, folks, I couldn't get it in time. Had to drive up here, but they are sitting on my computer. They will be analyzed. You will have a more complete report. I can talk forever, but I will stop here. I'll be available for any questions. Remember, 2 Latino majority districts. We do not want another repeat of.
Mr. Garcia, your time's expired, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kern County, remember that. Thank you.
Next, we have Ruth Lopez.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ruth Lopez. I live in District 4. My family has lived in Armona since 1990. I currently live in Hanford though. I bought a home in Hanford. You have my address on file. I don't want it on the website for 10 years. And so I am here at the will of the community. As you can see, there's a lot of us here with green shirts today to represent Public Map 101. We hope to have 2 Latino majority CVAP and effective CVAP. Just because it's 51% doesn't mean that's majority. We want to ensure that any map that is presented as a CVAP map is actually effective in that sense. And to us, that means more than 60%, not 51%, not 50%. To me, that's not a majority. And so along with all the other comments that were made today in terms of not having proper interpretation, not getting adequate timing of information to be shared, to be analyzed, you know, we hope to improve this process as we continue to move forward. I know we only have less than a month left to make this decision. And I hope you will take everybody's comments into consideration today. And I don't want to keep you guys longer. I know we have family to get back to, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all of the speaker cards that I have, but I understand that Fabiola is online and would like to speak.
I am. Hi, everyone. My name is Fabiola De Karatecha. I live in Lemoore, and I've lived here for 19 years. I've raised my babies here, and I'm a working mom. So unfortunately, this is the first opportunity that I've had to be able to engage in this process, because this was the only evening meeting that I could attend because I work during the daytime. I just am here to support map 101, the public map. Just as a reminder, really the community is supposed to elect its officials. We choose the people that represent us. The people that represent us don't choose the community. And I think that's important because then you get into incumbency protection, which I think your consultants warned you against, which is not something that we can do. We're here really to advocate for the community to be fairly represented. The census data was released August 26th, I believe it was made public. So certainly 2.5 months has been sufficient time to both digest and incorporate that information. If the community is expected to digest and incorporate information given even as late as today or yesterday, then certainly your consultants can incorporate the data that was released August 26th. It's important, right, to differentiate between the appearance of community engagement and actual community engagement. When you have a series of meetings that working families can't attend because they're only able to do that in the evening outside of typical working hours. When you say, that can count as one of the public hearings, so our council says it fits within the legal definition, then I would just ask you to really question if you're authentically and truly engaging the community or if you would just like to give the appearance of engagement. I advocate for public map 101 because I think that it more appropriately and adequately represents the richness and diverse nature of Kings County that will only continue to grow. I'm excited and I've been a proud member of my community for a very long time, my community of Leemore, not Lenmore. And for those of us that live and love our community, we urge you to pause and really take into account the community feedback. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Are there any motions for closing? That's all of the speaker cards and the people online that have their hands up.
Did we have any written?
We do. Matthew will be reading that into the record.
Yes. Okay. Matthew Boyette, Kings County Administration. We received a letter that says, "Dear members of the Board of Supervisors, on October 12th, 2021, county staff presented to our council an overview of the Kings County Board of Supervisors redistricting process. We were made aware that the next county public hearing was set for November 3rd, 2021. Our Corcoran City Council met and discussed this process and desire to provide on behalf of our City Council the following feedback for your consideration. Our city staff have evaluated the existing Kings County Board of Supervisors district boundaries using the 2020 redistricting data and mapping applications and discovered that the current district boundaries already meet a less than 5% population deviation. In addition, District 2, which represents the city of Corcoran, is already the closest population total to the ideal, with only 48 more than the ideal 27,745. District 2 is currently at 27,794. In relation to common communities of interest, the city of Corcoran has long-standing common community interest ties to both the city of Avenel and unincorporated community of Kettleman City. The unincorporated community of Home Garden was added to District 2 as a result of the 2010 Kings County redistricting process and has been a good community addition with similar interests and challenges while combined in our District 2 representation. The city of Corcoran highly encourages this board to leave District 2 boundaries intact as they currently exist to represent the ideal population balance total and maintenance of common communities of interest. Maintenance of District 2 can be maintained by small adjustments to the remaining districts as they center around the city of Hanford. The board shall pay close attention to District 4 as this district was on the verge of reaching a majority Hispanic district in the 2010 redistricting process. District 4, as it currently exists, is at 48% Hispanic. A shift to include portions of South Hanford and the unincorporated community of Grangeville under the alternative Kings County district boundary provided could increase this district to a 51.9% Hispanic district. The communities of Grangeville and Armona have also had many common community interest ties between business and property owners. Some expansion of District 1 can also be easily accomplished by taking in the Lemoore Naval Air Station and some surrounding agricultural properties. Altogether, this alternative would result in less than 1% population deviation and maintain 2 Hispanic districts. We respectfully submit the following 2 maps depicting the 2010 population and ethnicity for the currently existing district boundaries and an alternative district boundary map for your consideration. Thank you for your time and consideration at this matter, and we wish your board the best in redefining the board's areas of representation. Sincerely, Patricia Nolan, Mayor, Corcoran City Council. And attached to that were the 2 maps mentioned in the letter, the current district boundaries and their proposed alternative boundaries.
For clarification, Matt, when was that letter received?
It's dated October 26, 2021.
So those maps would not have been incorporated in the presentation today, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And just for the record, the maps attached to this letter have been posted to the county's redistricting website, which again is redistrictkings.com. So anybody that's wanting to view what was submitted, it is uploaded there.
Okay, very good. That's the only written we have.
Chairman, I also have Alvaro Preciado online that would like to speak.
Okay.
He's muted. Alvaro, you're muted. Can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, good evening, Board of Supervisors and Kings County staff and public. I would like to make my personal comment as a resident of the city of Avenal. I would like to see District 2 to remain with the rest of District 2 communities, which we are communities of interest. And I don't see the city of Avenal in a different district of not necessarily communities of interest. I also would like to bring to your attention that this is regarding equity, and also to remind everyone that the Census 2021 is not necessarily an accurate census. So we may be moving in a direction that we may have to go back in 10 years. So it will be wise to consider, the whole scenario about communities, districts, and think about what we're doing right now, and not feel sorry later. And maybe time and money wasted with potential litigations, or trying to do the best for our communities. I also would like to say that to consider extending the decision from December 8 to the deadline legally the county has. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all that I'm aware of, Chairman.
Okay, very good. With that, sorry, I heard something in the background.
Hello, my name is Alicia Ramirez, resident at 13921 6th Street in Armona. And I have a question for my representative. If he's logging in locally or if he's logging in out of town. I mean, because we need local representation, so I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, madam, you've already had your public speaking opportunity. And so with that, is there any other public comment?
No, sir, that was directed to you.
I'm sorry, but your time was expired. You don't get twice
And if I may insert, this is not a time for personal questions for the Board of Supervisors, but it is a time for public comment concerning redistricting. So I would encourage you, if you have comments concerning redistricting, that your time to make them, you've had time and
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, once I'll ask one more time, Madam Clerk, anybody else?
I do not see anyone else.
Okay, very good. So with that, we will close this public hearing. We'll now bring it back to the board for questions and discussion. The floor is open.
When, I have one question. So the 101 map was okay. The public 101. And then what was the NDC one that you recommended? 203 or 202?
Not recommended, sorry, they're not recommended, but they're balanced.
They're balanced. So what was the one that you was close to balance or 101?
Let me get my glasses. 201, 202, 203, and 204. Those four are population balance.
Okay, all right.
That's up to us, Supervisor.
Yeah, but we don't pick it tonight, do we?
Well,
Did we pick it tonight?
No.
there's
No.
alternatives and some
Yeah.
things. Okay.
Yeah, we need to go over
This is, yeah, Supervisor, this is a public hearing and so, you know, we're just taking information and gathering it as we move forward. So
Mr. Chairman, if no one else wants to come at this time, I do have some questions and I have some statements as well. Mr. Chair, so looking at the NDC maps, and I put the Public 101 map here because that we heard a lot about that tonight. I'm going to put that there. Focusing on the NDC maps, to dwindle down a little bit, or at least put my comments. When I look at NDC 202 or NDC 204, Matthew, do you mind putting 202 up first? And then have 204 ready. I think for the purpose of shortening down a focus and absorbing more information on maps like 101 and at least two of these NDC maps, when I look at 202 and I see the community of Kettleman City and Avenel going all the way up to the city of Lemoore, to me, that doesn't follow some of the things that NDC presented and some of the laws here. So first of all, taking a portion of the poorest part of the county, being Kettleman City, and putting it together with some of the richest part in big city to the city of Lemoore, to me, that's not keeping communities of interest, similar communities together. And when you have Avenel and Kettleman down there, I believe maps like 202 and 204 not only disrupt, but silences their voice, because the leverage would be in the city of Lemoore, the large city. So you have Hanford and you have Lemoore, and it's been brought up by people who spoke how those cities continue to grow and get beautified, while the rural communities, especially on the west side, struggle. And I use the word struggle because I've represented them for the last 13 years, and we fought together to get some things done out there, curb, gutter, and sidewalk. When I got elected, there was zero in Kettleman City. To the credit of the board, after many years of asking in the budget, we now have support of the board to get that whole community done, and we've started in Kettleman City, curb, gutter, sidewalk. But that being said, you diminish the voice of towns and cities like Avenel and Kettleman City when you draw districts like this in 202. And Matthew, could you go to 204, please? So it's the same comments to both these maps. It's not fair to Avenel and Kettleman City to get lumped in with the city like a large city like Lemoore. It diminishes their voices. It's just not a good thing. Those are my comments on 202 and 204, and also to those two maps. Just looking at some of the Latino, the Hispanic numbers in 202, yeah, those numbers are there. When you look at Hispanic populations, those are beautiful numbers there. But to get there, I think it hurts those communities. So I'm going to put those to the side. When I look at a map like 201, Matthew, come on. And NDC rep, do you mind? And I'm sorry, what's your last name, sir?
Chalkins.
Mr.
Call me
Chalkins.
Ken, please.
Kent.
Easier that way.
I'm going to call you Mr. Chalkins.
All right.
Mr. Chalkins, so I know it was hard to, like when we look on the paper and on here, the map, Matthew? The map part. Do you know if, I can't tell if the community of Home Garden is split in this map, if it's divided in this map. And I think it's because they labeled Home Garden, they used the text in the area where Home Garden's at. Is this the best map for you to zoom in and answer that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the best map to get there. I don't know if
Can you
it's, is it labeled?
zoom in, Matt?
I can go on the interactive mapping tool and zoom in.
Okay, so while you do that,
Well, let me just ask Dr. Johnson, Doug, you're on, or do you know the answer, or do you need to zoom in?
It's best to use the interactive map so that everyone can see the area we're talking about. Where the line
and
is.
I apologize for having to ask that question. It will be asked for map 203 as well, but I just can't tell from looking at this.
This is 201 and 203. Let's just try 201.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Are you seeing what you're looking for?
I was waiting to get an answer from you. Is Home Garden split in this 201 map, or is it kept whole?
Well,
The community
Home Garden's not an officially defined city or anything like that, so it would depend on what you consider the boundaries of Home Garden.
Right, it's not a census designated place.
Now, I know it's unincorporated. I currently represent it.
So
It's a simple question. Is Home Garden kept whole?
where is the boundary of Home Garden?
It is going to be on the east portion of Hanford, to the south of Hanford, and a little bit to the east of Hanford.
So is there a street that's a boundary?
What's that, 10th?
That's Houston and
10th or 10th?
Yeah, Home Garden is basically by the cemetery that
Yeah,
way.
south of the
But kinda
cemetery.
roll over to Hanford Armona. Looks like it might be a little chopped up there by the church. 10th Avenue by the fairgrounds. No, over there. No, to the left. Where it says
Well,
south.
And
Yep.
actually I can help. So the reason for the jagged border there is that is the city border of Hanford. So if Home Garden is unincorporated, then Home Garden's entirely in two.
Okay, let's get full.
Okay,
that's for 201. Did you want to look at the 203 as well?
please. And as you're going there, I'll just say that I like 203 as well. Out of all four of your maps, looking at 203, when you go to Hispanic population, it has three Hispanic based on population only. District 2 at 82%, District 4 at 67%, and District 5 at 53%. And that diminishes, though, again, when you look at the Hispanic citizens,
CVAP.
the CVAP, the voting age of them. But I think, in my opinion, this is good work on this map. I just can't tell if District 2 loses Home Garden.
So I think
on this map.
this is, Doug, this is C3. I mean, this is 203.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Uh,
follow the city, correct?
So correct. In this case, we're squaring off that very jagged um, city border and instead following 10th Avenue all the way down. So there may be a couple people that are right next to the city line, but most of it that's east of 10th Avenue would all still be intact.
Supervisor Verboen, you made reference to the cemetery, so it probably jogs around it.
Right.
Right. So, and presumably Supervisor, you could, if it's something like that, and you like the essence of the map,
We could tweak it.
you
We
could
can
tweak as long as you're staying within the population balance and all that. But this is what this whole effort is supposed to be, is to try and get close. And then if we can adjust to get it right, then we will.
Yes, sir. Because again, looking at the drawing, I can't even tell if District 2 is home garden or District 4 is home garden or District 5
Five
takes home garden.
whatever purple one is. 4.
It would.
It gets, home garden gets split between 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking at
That's
that.
what it looks
Oh,
like.
yeah.
See, so I like this map, but this would be, when the time comes, some conversation on looking at home garden, because we know that 10 years ago, when we underwent redistricting, home garden was split into 2 districts. And I remember the chairman of the Community Services District at that time, he came here and he spoke on behalf of his community, and he asked that home garden be put in one district.
May I just ask you to clarify? Is it important to have it in one district, or are you wanting to have it in one district, that district being District 2?
I got you.
Obviously, you're asking me from a selfish perspective that I love the community home gardens. I've represented them the last 10 years, and we're getting some good work done there. But the unselfish is that I just would like them to be whole. And I think the board, it goes in line with the actions the board took, where a week ago, going back to the assembly seats that are being redistricted right now. The statewide commission's map, and the folks in here know that last week, their draft map that they put out had all of Kings County in one assembly district, but cut the city of Corcoran in half and split Corcoran into 2 assembly districts. And I'm thankful to the board for having the chairman send a letter to the commission, because on Friday, a new map came out that keeps all of Corcoran whole and all of Kings County whole in the new assembly district. So the process works when we listen to the people. And I waited in line for 5 hours on Zoom, like many of the folks here in this room, just to be able to speak before that statewide commission.
Sure.
Because it was that important. So 203, I'm gonna put with Public 101 with notes on home garden.
What about 201?
I'm just gonna,
I mean, you said you like 201 and 203. Because but I get the issue of home garden. I just want to clarify for our notes here.
well, 201 has 2 Hispanic majority, but let me just double check your data right now on the CVAT, where yeah, it keeps 2 in CVAT, Hispanic majority, and 2 in the population. So now I'll leave those maps alone. I'm going to keep 201, 203, and Public 101 on mine there. And then I'm just going to transition in the questions. So going back to the question I tried to ask earlier, when you talk about, okay, the question is to council. Council, do we know yet if, based on Kings County, and I know Mr. Sanchez is coming up. Come on up, sir. Do we have the answer yet that as we're talking a lot about Hispanic populations and majorities in this districts being important, is there a law that says Kings County has to have X amount of Hispanic majority districts?
So board chair and board members, under the facts that have been presented before you, the data that you have before you, there is not a legal mandate to have a 3 Hispanic majority district in Kings County. Obviously, what you're working towards with all of the factors and issues that have been presented is you're looking to arrive as closely as you can at the one person, one vote principle. But as to that, you do have some discretion, whether it's 2 or 3, and the numbers associated with how strong each of those districts are really discretionary determinations based on the data before you, but there's not a 3-district requirement.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the spirit of it is just trying to do the intent of redistricting, which is looking at the new census data, which reflects population growth with respects growth amongst Hispanics in Kings County. And I think it's easy to say that just having one elected Hispanic on the board is not reflective of the general makeup of the population of Kings County. And the intent of redistricting is to give people a chance to have someone that, I don't want to say lives with them, but lives among them, that may look like them, has the same issues with them, the same challenges with them. And I think that's what we have with District 2. So I appreciate the county creating this district. I don't know if it was 20 years ago, Nev, or 10 years ago when this district got to this. But I do know that if you go back to, you look at that flag, Kings County incorporated in 1893, I'm the first Hispanic to get elected to this district that has a lot of Hispanics in it. And even once you're elected and being the only Hispanic is sometimes even more challenging. That being said, do you have, I appreciate the breakdown on the Hispanic majority. I wish we had a breakdown of data that showed men and women, because when you talk about Latinos' voices not being reflected on the dais, the obvious to everyone is that the voice of women in Kings County is not reflected on this dais up here when you have 5 men. And I know it's an election, so you can't guarantee it. The winners of the elections are the winners of the election. But I wish there was a way to look at that. And I hope I'm not breaking the law by talking that way. I'm talking from the heart right now, that I wish there was data that we could look at that too, to give women a chance to serve on the Kings County Board of Supervisors. Okay, so moving down here. Okay, I'm going to close with this. The model of District 2, again, to the credit of the board 10 years ago, I think this is a good model to look at as we look at the creation of other districts, because from living it, I'm born and raised in Corcoran too, and born in the Corcoran Hospital. Dr. Ball is the first person who pulled me out and spanked me. So that being said, being born and raised in the city of Corcoran and representing Avenel, Kettleman City for the last 13 years and bringing in Home Garden 10 years ago, I can tell you that when I walk those communities and going door to door, if I'm in Kettleman and Avenel, I get lost in my mind and I feel like I'm walking streets in Corcoran. There's no difference between streets like Garvey and Bell Avenue and Corcoran than streets in the neighborhoods of Avenel. If I go walking in Avenel, I smell the same food that's being cooked in my neighborhood. I smell the chorizo con huevos, the papas, what we're cooking back home. And I'm one of them. And they have one of them representing them here. And I'm compassionate. It allows me to be compassionate and focus on those issues in my district. And I think that's one of the best things that you can define when you look at redistricting to get there. And so I hope that we can continue to have that kind of conversation here. And so, Mr. Chair, I know you want to ask the board if there's anyone else who has questions or comments, but if you're willing to entertain a motion to help us wrap this up tonight and to move forward when the time is right, there's a motion that I'd like to put before the board.
Yeah, I seek clarification from County Council. We, this is a public hearing. It's the intent of this is to take, and share public information. And, it's not designated as a decision-making evening. There are going to be, extended periods of time to, not extended, but more time, as we've talked about, to make our decisions based on, the preference of the community and the board. And so, I don't know, council, do you have any comments with respect to that?
I do have comments with respect to that. Part of the hope at this hearing is to kind of get some direction about if there are any particular maps the board would like us to focus on. I know Supervisor Valley has identified a couple of maps. I'd be interested if there are any other maps that the other members of the board would like us to focus on, but I don't know if it's going to actually require a whole motion or the formality of a motion, but certainly if we could get some guidance about how you'd like the process to proceed. There are a couple of NDC maps that create 3 majority minority districts, and there's a couple that create 2. There's the map from Valley Voices that presents another set of options. If you are able at this time to provide some additional input on how you'd like to see things proceed, it would be helpful as we continue to move forward with the maps and try and refine them. Even if there's any suggestions for, I like this map, but let's modify it in a certain way, because I think it doesn't reflect the communities of interest that as I see them exist. So.
Well, I'm gonna wait to see if there's anyone who's going to respond
We
to
just
that.
got these maps today, correct?
These maps have been on the website for some time, and I understand if they.
It's Friday.
Yeah, if they haven't been able to fully process them, I do understand that there's a lot of information to go through with them. So I think it's fully fair if you guys don't have that direction to provide today, that we can seek further direction at a later time. But if you are able to provide direction today, certainly we would love to receive it.
Are we still in a public hearing, or are we going to close it out and we can speak? Or we can speak?
We are. This is your time to speak, Supervisor. This is the public portion is closed, and this is our time with the folks that have drawn the maps, NDC, and so it's our time.
Okay, I'm okay with the 101 map, public 101 map. I don't know if it was presented by Valley Voices or the public. They said public, but you said Valley Voices. And then we got NDC. Too many numbers. You said 204 and 202 you liked or didn't like?
I said I liked 201 and 203, Supervisor.
Okay, that's why I got those over here. 203, 201. Yeah, I got these two. Yeah, I'm okay with focusing on these 3 and moving forward. I don't know about the other 2 supervisors, what they see works in their
203s?
I've always kept a neutral position on this. I know you've had a hand in leading forward on it, but from what I heard from the audience, we need to stay out of it until the last minute. So we have these maps now. We can choose which one fits the best criteria. And I just had a question earlier and it came back 2 or 3 times. I want to know what the criteria was, if they took our address into consideration, and the answer was no. He elaborated on it. It wasn't that I was worried about where I live. I just want to know the yes or no answer. It would have been nice if he just said yes or no. That way it wouldn't look like I was trying to deviate to pick my own map. So just so that for the record, next time, just answer it simply, and that way we can move forward. I think there was about 15 minutes wasted on that. And yeah, I'm okay with the 101 map, public 101. I don't know how it fits other districts or how people feel, but whatever works best, the balance for the community is fine with me.
It's 101 and 203.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with them, those 3.
With those 3, the 201, 203, and the 101 maps, focusing on those?
Correct.
Can I, Mr. Chair, then can I go ahead and make a suggestion to be helpful? One, I think the majority of our public hearings end with the motion with action, but you're right. We can make the decision here to leave the public hearing open and reopening at a later date. But I think simply after hearing the board narrow some of these down, that I would like to ask if the board is willing to add one more public hearing. And looking at the dates of November 16th, which is a Tuesday, or Tuesday, November 30th, that gives us time to squeeze in one more public hearing prior to the December 7th scheduled public hearing, where it's possible that we vote on one of these maps and get locked in for the next 10 years. I think it's positive for a number of ways. One, gives the community and the board members time to absorb all this information that's before us. And it also gives us an opportunity to learn again from today, meaning that on the 16th or the 30th, even if it takes a motion or just consensus of the board, that we again hold that public hearing at 6:15 p.m. versus doing it in the middle of our 9 a.m. Tuesday board meeting. Because when you look around the room, I'm happy to see Mr. Chavez and Mr. Lopez all the way in from Avenel, seeing folks from Corcoran here this evening and other folks from around the county. This gave them a good opportunity to be here. This is what redistricting is about, having that input. Tonight was a beautiful thing. And thank you, by the way, for your time and your commitment to be here. And so, Mr. Chair, if that takes a motion to do that and squeeze in one more public hearing, I'm prepared to make that motion right now.
It's your choice.
Okay. So,
I'll second.
Okay.
Now, the thing is you guys are considering this motion, and if you're considering specific dates, I think we also need to be cognizant of whether our demographer would be available on any of those dates to be able to assist with.
How quick do you find that out?
Well, we have them online right now.
Yeah, this is.
I put up the 16th or the 30th.
Oh, 16th, did you say the 30th or the 23rd?
So the 16th.
Good, because the 30th is.
Yeah, we're at some of us at a statewide convention. Yeah, we're not, a lot of us, I don't even think we meet, Catherine. We're not, because of CSAT. Yeah. So November 16th, sir, would that work for you?
Or the 23rd. We have to have time for publication as well.
23rd, fine.
The evening of the 16th.
Fine.
So
does 16th meet your deadline, council, for publication?
Catherine, I'm going to rely, according to the elections code and the law that governs these hearings specifically, all we need to do is to publish to the website 5 days in advance. However, we have, in order to reach as many people as possible and to follow normal practices in other the practices that we have in other public hearings, we've also been publishing in the newspaper. I'm not certain if the 16th will give us enough time to publish in the newspaper. Maybe Catherine, you can let us know.
And again, the only reason I didn't look at the 23rd is because Thanksgiving week, and I don't think people. Whatever.
That's what you're serving for Thanksgiving.
So 16th works for you?
Yeah. Doug, I don't know about you. The 16th is okay for me, but
Okay.
Yeah.
it depends on what, if it's a public hearing, yeah.
We could make the 16th and
Okay.
are you suggesting a public hearing or some other sort
No,
of?
the same format here, the
The
public
same
hearing, I think it allows. Okay, so to get everyone home then tonight, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 16th at 6:15 p.m. here in our chambers.
All right, and I'll second that, but did you want to give direction on the one map to keep home gardens whole? It won't be very many homes, maybe,
Yeah, I haven't.
Did that. Thank you.
I know that's the issue. That's 203, right?
I'll second that. But,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, if I need to amend the motion to include Supervisor Verboen's reiterated concern on home garden, that's fine too.
To reiterate his desire to have the 203.
yeah, he already took a note, so.
Yeah, we can do that. I don't think you need to amend the motion. If the motion is for the public hearing, then that should be sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one last time, Madam Council, would you clarify the motion?
Hold on, she's.
Her and Catherine are conferencing.
Okay. We just wanted to make sure we were going to meet all the deadlines.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do it 6:30. And I think that ought to be sufficient for the
So
public.
Chair wanted you to re-summarize the motion.
Okay, let me summarize the motion and you guys can correct me if I get it wrong. The motion is to add a public hearing on November 6th, or to hold the public hearing on
November
November
16th.
16th at 6:15 PM. And at that time, NDC will again present maps and there can be further discussion and they will make some modifications to map 203.
Oh, yeah.
Open that public hearing 6:30.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I caught that. We open at 6:15 and the public hearing at 6:30 like you did today.
Yeah, and that's what Catherine and I were actually discussing today, because as I reviewed the law, once again, prior to this hearing today, I realized that we have to start at the exact time, 6:30, but that's generally when it's part of a regular public hearing. So if we just have a special meeting for a public hearing, then we could just start at 6:30, have our public comment and move forward.
All right, thank you, council.
If I can just clarify, was part of the motion to focus at that hearing on Public 101, NDC 201, and the modified 203? Or was that not?
I think the home garden, looking at keeping them whole, applies to 201 and 203.
You know, Doug,
But if I might, I don't think it was part of the motion.
it was not
Correct.
the motion. And actually that is a point that I would like clarification from the board, is whether you want to finally settle on a certain number of maps to focus on today, or do you want to reserve that and give yourselves a little bit more time to review them independently and then come back with a more focused.
I thought we polled already. We had consensus from the
We
board.
do have consensus. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
These three or four, three maps.
Well,
Okay.
you know, and I'll weigh in here. I mean, I think I can concur with the two NDC maps that have been proposed, and also 101. I would just say that, you know, in redrafting maps, I think there's a lot of proud voters that have spent their lives in their districts, and so, you know, I think we need to be cautious about drafting people out of, you know, historic maps. I get the law, and I think it clearly has been shown that we can achieve those types of modifications and also fulfill the goals as well. And so I would concur that the maps that have been presented, the maps that have been put forth and by my colleagues, I would accept as well. And but I do have one question. There was a late map that there was a gentleman that had written a letter.
Yes.
Did we have a copy of that?
That was actually written by, is it the city manager for the city of, no, not the city manager, the mayor of the city of Corcoran. And with that letter, they submitted a map. It wasn't submitted in time in order for NDC to incorporate it and to present it today and to calculate all the data. But I think that it certainly would be appropriate for them to do that prior to the next public hearing and present that as well.
Okay.
And if I can just offer one piece, mainly for the public, you know, because I think the board's aware of this. The vote to limit to these three or 3 plus the new map isn't binding. So, for example, some of the public said they didn't have enough time to look at the other maps. If they come in on the 16th and say, wait, we really like this other map, I would say nothing's final till the whole map's final. So just so the residents know, if they really want to bring a map back up, they could.
Right.
That's fair. I think just the polling, let the public know kind of where the board's thought process was at based on what we had before us tonight.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, with that, we have a motion on the table and we have a second. So Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Okay, we have 5 in favor, motion carries. With that, I think, is there any further discussion to come before the board at this time? Hearing none, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Our presenters this evening, Doug and Ken, thank you for all the hard work. You guys got to be frazzled with this nationwide effort of making this, and we truly appreciate all your effort. We appreciate everyone's effort in attending the meeting this evening and giving your heartfelt direction, and I think that's shown that the board has listened and will continue to listen and do what we were also voted in to do, and that is to find the best solution to this redistricting effort. So with that, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming, and if you're interested, we'll be back on the 16th. So thank you all. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.